Amidst the wave of releases this month, I'd hate not to highlight a title that I've been following since its reveal. Yeah, I would say I'm actually pretty easy to get interested in a project. I'm not shy about telling people that key art is everything when it comes to grabbing someone's attention, and perhaps someone at indie studio Blue Banshee heard this because Maliki, Poison of the Past, has all the fixings of a project that I love sharing with others. Charming characters, turn-based combat, farming sim elements, and a vibrant world. The list just goes on. Still, in that same breath, I do believe that these lofty indie ambitions dampen the otherwise fantastic adventure that Maliki Poison of the Past has. So let's dive into why that is. Maliki, Poison of the Past, actually takes place in the future, where a poison plant monster is about to overrun the land. To combat this, Maliki, your resident mastermind, has frozen time and summoned a hero named Sand to save humanity. Okay, there is a lot going on in this opening, and I'm not really familiar with the webcomic series that this is based on. However, I was pleased that the developers kept things moving in the opening hours. Any context that you require can be found by interacting with the various characters of this world later on, which helps with the pacing in these early moments. The story becomes quite involved as it directly relates to Maliki's past and key events in her life. This plot works perfectly for anyone new to the series as it recounts past events and provides insight into the nuances of the entire cast. For instance, the cook, a cat girl named Lady, doesn't have a mouth, and well, you get to understand why that is. This extends to the characters who join your party, including Becky, Fang, and Fenimal. Each character is pretty distinct, covering a few personality tropes. Still, none of them are really written over the top, and each helps illustrate where you are in the narrative and what's happening next, which is great because there's no real minimap or quest markers to remind you. The only character I didn't really connect with is the lead, Sand. They're voiceless, but because dialogue choices don't significantly impact the narrative flow and the character exists primarily as a vessel for the player, I never truly connected with the protagonist's goals, if they had any except for getting home. That said, immersion comes through the game's farming sim systems, which oddly help with the disconnect. Perhaps this is the nature of farming sims in general, but the contrast between narrative and adventure moments versus the chill farming systems is actually kinda nice. Still, every system and feature in this game is oddly surface level, which had me wondering if, by removing some aspects, another part of the experience could have been more refined. As you progress, you'll gain access to various periods that transport you to themed levels. Here, you'll solve puzzles, fight monsters, and eventually advance through a few fetch quest style missions. The developers did a good job of keeping these missions multi-layered and pretty entertaining. You'll encounter some mid-battle sequences or puzzles, even though the rest of the experience remains relatively straightforward. As you gain new party members, you'll be able to use their power-ups in the fields. There's a clever system here that triggers when you're near a puzzle, allowing you to switch to characters, which is smart because it lets you gauge the size of a puzzle and definitely helped me understand the dynamics more quickly. Some puzzles can be kinda tricky, but I had the most fun simply walking around the large areas and unfreezing NPCs to hear about what was happening before they were frozen. The writing itself has almost a dark humor backing it, and while whimsical most of the time, there are a few emotional story beats driven by Maliki and the other core characters. When it comes to the farming systems, players have access to various plots of land around the hub area. You'll be asked to feed currency into this tree that you can earn from farming and exploring, where you can unlock new areas and even items. I should say this system can be easily broken if you try hard enough. So be careful, because if you rush the game, spending a large number of coins could sequence break certain aspects. Playing naturally through the game for me didn't introduce too many oddities, other than occasionally having an item before it was asked for. Even though I enjoyed it, farming is still a strange feature in this game and I don't think it needed it. Sure, it directly ties into the recipe and cooking systems, but even that could have been set aside. The hub world, though fun to explore initially, is way too big. I was still getting lost after playing for 6 hours. Furthermore, there is a day and night cycle in the hub, but when it gets too late, the day just resets. Nothing really happens. There's no stamina or real reason for this, and while I thought the farming tools were cool and intuitive, they felt more like unnecessary padding. The combat system is actually pretty cool. It's turn-based, with your general attack and ability usage along with exploiting enemy weaknesses for higher damage. I know, typical. However, there is a more interesting aspect, with the ability to manipulate the timeline and use time-based abilities to alter battles. That said, some fights can drag on, given that you need to be strategic about items and ability usage. The most straightforward way to heal and gain in the first few hours is to just slide the timeline to waste a turn and heal, but you may have already had to waste a turn to focus in order to get enough points to do that, so this can stack up and prolong an otherwise quick battle. The enemies and battle animations are incredibly cool. Manipulating the timeline to have two characters execute dual attacks is possible, and I must say that once Fenimal joins your party, things become really interesting. Combat extends into very light equipment system that only requires you to explore environments and complete puzzles to obtain these items. In fact, there is very little menuing in this game, which is pretty rare for an RPG. It rides a fine line between being accessible and kind of challenging. You can level grind if that's your thing, but given that the characters all level up together, you'll likely breeze through this all quickly. Regardless, I wish there was some quick time events or a method to mitigate the high damage that enemies can sometimes deal. While these systems all make for a fun experience, there's one aspect that genuinely enhances Maliki Poison of the Past, and that's the soundtrack. Jesus Christ, this soundtrack is amazing. It's probably why I enjoyed farming so much too, and why I didn't care if a puzzle stumped me for too long or if I had to run to the other side of the town to deliver something. The soundtrack was always there for me, holding my hand throughout the entire adventure. In the hub world, it dynamically shifts throughout the day, lulling you to bed and softly tucking you in. In the dungeons, it is no less grand. Maliki is a testament to all that comes after it. If a soundtrack slaps, you know what, sure, I'll overlook a few limited systems. Maliki Poison of the Past is a charming game that surprised me in more ways than one. I appreciated the contrasting systems that don't require a large time investment or genre knowledge, where everything stays a fun level, which is safe, but I won't fault a developer for sticking there. Where it does take chances, it dominates. The character drama, multi-layered puzzles, large environments, and incredible soundtrack cap off the experience. Still, there's a noticeable bloat, where numerous ambitious systems cast a shadow over these good qualities. Regardless, if you play Maliki, you'll have fun. Noisy Pixel is giving Maliki Poison of the Past a 7.5 out of 10. Thanks for watching. This video is brought to you by your supporters on Patreon. Noisy Pixel is run by a group of gamers providing independent gaming coverage through news, reviews, previews, and more. Check out our Patreon to help support our continued growth, and subscribe to keep up with all our future content.
Noisy Pixel.